simply too much to ask the American taxpayer to do. We have been at that point before, but there's never been a point more clear than now with this footage and the place we are in the culture that enough is enough. I want to invite the members of the Pro-Life Women's Caucus up and also the women heads of groups, because we are representing the young girls and the women across the country who have decided to put their foot down and say no more. Human weeds. That's how Margaret Sanger explained the founding of Planned Parenthood. We have to get rid of the human weeds. Those are the words, practically out of the words of the sex traffickers that we're just hearing from. These human weeds need to be suctioned out. They need their children chopped into pieces. They need their STDs taken care of. They need servicing so that the commodity that is their body can be put out back on the street. This is from an organization that purports to look out for the needs of women. Yesterday, the greatest news that I personally have heard, and I'm sure these women agree, some of the best news came out, and that is that this Congress has decided to take a deep breath and think a little bit more and look very closely into the funding of Planned Parenthood and all the Title X abortion providers, and put a freeze on this funding until we've had a chance to look at it closely and decide, is this something that we want taxpayers to be complicit in? This activity, is this appropriate activity for taxpayers to be complicit in? I applaud the leadership and I applaud the Congress for taking family planning funding as is out of this continuing resolution. It is a step in the right direction, but a partial victory. The true victory will be when we have statutory language which protects all women from such exploitation, no matter their age, and takes taxpayers out of the sexual trafficking business. I want to invite you, I'm the president of the Susan B. Anthony list. It's our job to elect pro-life women to public office and represent these views. Penny Nance, the CEO of Concerned Women for America, is also with us, and Kristen Hawkins, the head of Students for Life, representing millions of grassroots activists across the country. We also have the Pro-Life Women's Caucus. Chair of that is Jean Schmidt. We are going to stand here in support of each other and in a show of unity, so that you know we will be standing together. We have some of our friends and male members of Congress, especially Congressman Pence, that we'll invite in just a minute to describe legislative efforts moving forward. But next, I'm going to give the microphone to Lila Rose, the head of Live Action, so she can give you a little bit more context to the videos that you just saw.
Thank you again for coming this morning. This is extremely important information for everyone to know about, and I'm so glad that we have brave members of Congress who are willing to face the facts here. The reality is we are supporting an organization on the federal level, on the state level, on the local level with tax dollars that our organization has been exposing for the past 3.5 years, covering up the sexual abuse of girls as young as 13 years old. We have this evidence that's been documented in 10 different clinics in 6 different states. Adding to that evidence, we have new evidence over the past week and a half, adding 7 more clinics in 4 more areas, 4 more states, that show even a more intensified version of the abuse cover-up, where we had actors posing as human traffickers walk into Planned Parenthood clinics and sit down with people at all levels of management, managers, supervisors, clinicians, staffers, sitting down with Planned Parenthood at all levels and saying that they managed a sex ring of underage girls, some of them imported from other countries, some of them from our country, and that they wanted to get secret abortions for these girls, and they wanted to get information about how the girls can basically stay on the street and keep them on the street to maximize their profit. And the response across the board from Planned Parenthood workers, instead of immediately reporting it, instead of trying to make any attempt to rescue or care for these young girls, is instead to cover it up and to aid and abet, to provide information to help these traffickers do their job and make more money off of these girls. This is absolutely something that I think all American women can agree, all parents can agree, has to stop. This organization is not safe for women. This organization is not to be trusted. It's not the friend of women. And women across our country, parents across our country, our public, I think, is going to ask for more. This has to stop, this cover-up. Couple quick updates on the state level. Efforts are being made in the legislature. The governor of New Jersey recently confirmed a veto just after our video in New Jersey was released to ensure that Planned Parenthood of New Jersey would no longer be receiving any state funds. Movements are now made in the Virginia legislature. country that this organization will no longer be supported with tax dollars, propped up with tax dollars, and that Congress and people across the country will have zero tolerance for the sexual abuse cover-up of vulnerable young girls. Thank you so much.
This begins a call-in day from grassroots folks all around the country from our organization, Susan B. and Liz. The website, the go-to website is exposeplannedparenthood.com. Exposeplannedparenthood.com. It's got all the footage and all the grassroots activity. I want to hear first from Congressman Pence because that's what these grassroots folks are talking about today. This is what they're insisting upon is passing your legislation, Congressman Pence. Then I'd appreciate it after that if Gene Schmidt from Ohio, if you would lead, and we'll hear 2 minutes from everyone, but there will be extensive time for follow-up questions from any that we have. Thank you.
Thank you, Marcia. Good to be with you. Thank you for your leadership, and that's Susan B. Anthony and Penny, and my distinguished colleagues who are gathered here. It's an honor to stand with you all. The time has come to deny any and all taxpayer funding of Planned Parenthood. We stand today united in the wake of these horrendous videos that have been courageously developed. To say that what is now becoming more apparent to millions of Americans is really nothing new. The reality is that the largest abortion provider in America is also the largest recipient of federal funding under Title X. And back in 2007, with the support of virtually every colleague here, and now with the support of more than 160 co-sponsors on Capitol Hill, we introduced the Title X Abortion Provider Prohibition Act. This legislation, if enacted in this Congress, would deny any Title X funding to Planned Parenthood or any other organization that provides abortion. We just simply believe that first, let me say, there's a lot of important work that's done in Title X clinics. There's a lot of important health screening and health education, counseling that takes place. Our legislation does not cut one dime from Title X funding. What it does, it says if you are also in the business of providing abortions, you cannot be the recipient of Title X funding. And as we all know standing here, according to their recent annual report, Planned Parenthood received $363.2 million in taxpayer funding during a period of time that they boasted of having performed 324,008 abortions. Now, Planned Parenthood will be quick to say that the Title X funding can't be used for abortion, and in a technical, statutory way that may be correct. But we all know that money is fungible. The money that the hundreds of millions that pour into Planned Parenthood Title X clinics free up resources for their abortion procedure. I would join with Marjorie in welcoming the efforts by Republican leaders to zero out funding for family planning in the continuing resolution. But let me also say I intend to offer an amendment to next week's continuing resolution that would specifically deny all other federal funding of Planned Parenthood through other means as well. Let me say, I stand here as a legislator, but I also stand here as a dad. I have 2 teenage girls at home. And to see on these videos the kind of facilitation of the abuse of minor girls is deeply offensive to me. And what happened in New Jersey happened in a Title X claim. And we stand together united, believing that in this Congress, in this moment, we will once and for all deny all federal funding to Planned Parenthood of America.
Gene Schmidt is the chairwoman of the House Pro-Life Caucus. After we hear from our ladies, we'll hear from 2 other leader ladies, Kristen and Pence, and then we'll move on.
Thank you. And first off, elections have consequences, and thank you for the power that is behind me. I really appreciate it. I support everything that Mike Pence is doing to stop the federal funding of abortion, whether it's directly or indirectly, whether it's in the United States or whether it's abroad. You know, we are in an era right now where we have to look at every dollar that we spend, every tax dollar, and say, is this the right way to spend your money? Is this the honest way to spend your money? And is it in keeping with the Constitution? And I think that when you look at giving money to Planned Parenthood, you have to question whether it is the right way, the honest way, and the constitutional way. You know, I have notes here, but I really just want to point out two things. The Goodmeister Institute, which is Planned Parenthood's own research center, says that if you give more money to abortions, federal money to abortions, you can have more abortions. Well, I did take logic, and I think that that is the inverse. Then if you don't give money, you don't have what? Abortions. It only makes sense. But when I looked at the videos, I said, well, you know, that really does happen, because it's really happening in my hometown of Cincinnati, Ohio. Just a few years ago, two separate cases, that one is in court now, one already went to court, were young girls. A 14-year-old girl was being raped by her father, and she went to the abortion clinic, Planned Parenthood, and she told him, and they ignored it. Well, he's in jail for his actions. And the prosecutor decided not to extend the case beyond that. But there's a second case that's going to trial right now. It involves another young woman. Her coach took her to the Planned Parenthood clinic and said he was the guardian, paid for the abortion. She went home and never told her parents. But it seems that she had to go back to the doctor. And upon examination, the doctor said, well, when did you have this abortion? And her parents said, what abortion? And it's being decided in the courts as we speak. But in both cases, they were underage girls. In both cases, they were, I believe, 14. Ladies and gentlemen, that's statutory rape. That should have been a giant red flag in front of that abortion clinic. And they knew these girls were underage. And yet they looked the other way. It needs to stop. And you and I don't need to spend our precious dollars allowing this to continue. So I look forward to this Congress and a pro-life act legislation that will protect all life, because you know the Constitution, the preamble says we have the right to life. And that's the right to life of the unborn, the born, and the elderly. I want to thank Marjorie for what she is doing, for you courageous ladies for what you are doing, and I'm going to turn this back to Marjorie. Thank you very much.
Congresswoman from the state where sex trafficking has just been revealed through these videos, and that's Anne-Marie Burkle, number 25.
Good morning. It is an honor to stand here with my colleagues and to be in support of this legislation that will defund Planned Parenthood. This is an opportunity for all of us to take a look at the monies that Planned Parenthood is getting. In an environment where we're asking legitimate agencies to take a cut because we can no longer afford it. We are now going to cut an agency that exploits women, both born and unborn. This is an opportunity for us to stand up for what's right and to stand up for all women, born and unborn. Thank you very much.
Vicki Hartzler from Missouri, another freshman.
Thank you. You know, there's a lot of aspects we could look at with this piece of legislation, but I want to focus on the girls themselves. I used to be a teacher for 11 years, and I worked with teenagers. I love them, and there are every young woman that I had the privilege of teaching and working with and coaching has value and has potential and is worthy to be respected and loved, and they deserve better than to be preyed on by older men, be exploited by pimps, or be profiteered from an abortion industry. And here we have an instance where our tax dollars are going to an industry, and these young women are going there and having trouble in their lives. And instead of being loved and being given help and assistance, they're being used and misused. And they're not standing up for them when they're being sexually abused or they're being in the human trafficking. And it is ridiculous that our tax dollars are going to subsidize this industry. It's time to pull the plug. It's time to give value to the girls that they deserve. And I'm happy to support this bill. Thank you.
Congresswoman Virginia Fox from the great state of North Carolina.
Thanks, Marjorie. I support, again, this legislation very, very strongly. I want to say amen to the things that have already been said, particularly as we talk about the need to make these budget cuts that we have committed to make. The American people want us to cut spending, and there's no better place to cut than to the money going to Planned Parenthood. But I want to bring up an issue that some people on the other side, particularly over in the Senate, have said that our agenda on women's health is extreme. I don't believe that's what the American people think. Taxpayer funding of Planned Parenthood is extreme. Their agenda on the rights of unborn babies is extreme. That's why we're not going to back down from stopping taxpayer funding for an organization that's directly responsible for the abortion of hundreds of thousands of unborn babies each year. If you're going to kill the unborn, you're not going to get taxpayer funding, period. That's what the American people want, and that's why we're standing up so strongly. It's the right thing to do. It's the right thing to do for the unborn babies. It's what the American people want. Thank you.
Reading about North Carolina, we have another one, Renee Elmers, freshman from North Carolina.
Thank you so much, and thank you all for coming. This is wonderful. My comments are going to be very similar. I am just so honored to be part of this legislation and moving it forward. Its time has come. We're well beyond that point, as a matter of fact. And now we can make this an issue. And it's unfortunate that we've seen this. We've seen these videos, and as a nurse, my first thought was the safety and health of those young girls that are being subjected to this. Regardless of where you stand on the abortion issue, why are taxpayer funding going when there are so many of us who are pro-life, who want to protect life from preconception to natural death? And here is where the buck stops. So we are ready and willing. It's time again, and I'm just grateful and happy to be part of it. Thank you.
Congresswoman Martha Roby from Alabama.
Thank you. I'm standing here today with my colleagues as a call to action. I want to thank each of you for your leadership, for your courage, for your willingness to stand up. It is beyond shocking that Planned Parenthood employees were found on video aiding and abetting in the sex trafficking of minors. It is not a proud day that citizens learn about these activities, that they're taking place through Planned Parenthood. It's an even worse day when we're told that our government has funded Planned Parenthood with more than $363 million in government grants and contracts. These videos are demeaning to women, and they are a black eye on our society. Funding must be stopped, and Planned Parenthood must not be granted any more taxpayer dollars. I thank members of Susan B. Anthony and Live Action for allowing me to come today and express the immediate need to defund Planned Parenthood.